Welcome to Crossroads. The Supreme Court, they could have the final say over whether judges all across the country can continue putting orders from the President of the United States on hold. A case that will be heard this Thursday, this week, is going to focus on whether all these district judges all across the country, do they have the authority to put nationwide injunctions on President Donald Trump's orders? Again, the question: can a district judge make a ruling for the entire country and overrule the president? And this case could also be pivotal in determining the divisions of power between different branches of government. We have, of course, Congress, right? The legislative branch. There's the executive branch, the president, and there's the legislative branch. Can one branch override another, and to what extent? Epic Times says this: one of the many lawsuits contesting President Donald Trump's agenda will hit the Supreme Court for oral arguments for the first time on May 15th, this Thursday. It says the case arises from a challenge to Trump's birthright citizenship executive order. Again, ending birthright citizenship, a very complicated move. And it says the hearing is unusual in that it stems from a preliminary appeal in which the Trump administration is challenging a federal judge's use of nationwide injunctions to block the president's agenda. Meaning, although the main case, the underlying one, is the birthright citizenship argument, the issue that will be debated is whether again, district judge can make a nationwide injunction against the president. That's going to be the issue they rule on. It says the Trump administration argues that district court judges are exceeding their authority by imposing broad blocks on government policy, rather than applying them to the parties in the lawsuit. Three lower court judges had issued nationwide injunctions blocking Trump's policy of ending birthright citizenship for children of illegal immigrants. And it says the injunctions are highly controversial because they impose policy changes for the entire country rather than offer relief only for plaintiffs in the lawsuit, which would be how you'd normally do it, right? And it says drawing scrutiny from some Supreme Court justices and members of Congress. Again, it's going to be a big argument, right? Look, on one side, many judges all across the country, they've argued that if the President of the United States issues an order that is unconstitutional, and remember with birthright citizenship, they argue it's been debated previously. They say it's enshrined in the Constitution. Conservatives note that yes, it was, but not for illegal immigrants. That was the argument, right? And then, of course, they need to be put on hold, they say, until a higher court can make a final determination. How do you balance this, right? If a local judge believes the president is violating the Constitution, and they say everything is a constitutional crisis these days, that's just the argument. If some judge believes that, can they freeze the actions of the entire country until it goes to the Supreme Court, which may take months? And what does that mean for the powers of the president? Does the president have any authority in that case? That is the issue. Now, for President Donald Trump and many Republicans, this has raised a much deeper issue of whether these judges have power over the President of the United States. Are they like unelected leaders of the country, effectively? So the way they're arguing this. And this is particularly so when it comes to the president's ability to invoke national emergencies or to address other issues regarded as threats to the nation. What if we get invaded? Well, can a judge just overturn a presidential declaration of an invasion? They're currently doing it. Some would argue it is not serious enough, that there's a national emergency or national crisis. The president has declared a national emergency and declared invasion. Can a judge overrule that? To what extent? What if we went to war, right? What if there are terrorists? Can a judge overturn that? Well, currently they are. Again, challenging Trump's ability to go after gangs now designated as terrorist groups. Does a judge have say over that, and to what extent? These are the arguments. Now, back in March, Trump raised his concerns in a post on Truth Social. He said this. He said unlawful nationwide injunctions by radical left judges could very well lead to the destruction of our country. And he added, quote, lawyers endlessly search the United States for these judges and file lawsuits as quickly as they find them. Again, this is part of the allegation that they do judge shopping, that lawyers, because this is the issue. If you're part of a law firm and you want to stop the actions of the President of the United States. And you can effectively find any district judge literally in the entire country. And that judge, whether legally or not, has the ability to freeze a law throughout the entire country, meaning it doesn't matter where they are. You're going to pick the ones that are most likely going to rule in your favor. And the allegation is they do judge shopping. These law firms go and find the one judge who will probably do exactly what they want, and they will make a ruling at the very local level and effectively freeze the entire country. Can they do that? That's the question. And as we have seen, a very small handful of judges, they keep getting all the Trump cases. That, of course, is the concern on the Republican side on why you keep seeing the same small number of judges continue getting case after case after case. They allege it's because of judge shopping. Now, Trump adds it is then the obligation of the law-abiding agencies of government to have these orders overturned. The danger is unparalleled. These judges want to assume the powers of the presidency without having to attain 80 million votes, suggesting, of course, that they have the power of the president, but they're unelected. And he added they want all of the advantages with none of the risk. Again, a president has to be allowed to act quickly and decisively about such matters as returning murderers, drug lords, rapists, and other such type of criminals back to their homeland or to other locations that will allow our country to be safe. Now look, this is also not just a minor issue. With, little over 100 days in office, he's got a bit past that now, 100 days in office, Donald Trump has faced a very, very large number of lawsuits, more than a couple lawsuits every single day, in fact. And the court orders from these lawsuits putting his presidential actions on hold. This is acted to freeze many actions of the White House. A lot of what Trump is doing is effectively on hold because of lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. And some would allege this is made just to be a delaying process, delaying it until the midterms. And if Trump's only, 4 years, we'll see. We'll see about that. It would mean, of course, midterm elections. If Democrats win a couple seats back in the House, they can block him. 2 years after that, again, third year is usually campaigning season for the next election. They can effectively delay him if they can continue doing this and make him a lame duck, using the courts as their tool. That is the concern right here. Bloomberg notes this. It says President Donald Trump's expansive use of executive powers faced at least 328 lawsuits as of May 1st. 328 lawsuits in 100 days, with judges halting his policies far more often than they allowed them. It says courts entered more than 200 orders stopping the administration's actions in 128 cases, with judges sometimes ruling at multiple stages of the legal fights. It says judges had allowed contested policies to go ahead in 43 cases, not that many, and had not ruled yet in more than 140 cases. Most cases are in the early stages, and new ones are being filed daily. Now, on this front, with the Supreme Court now gearing up to hear the case around this again this Thursday, that ruling coming up, it could go either way. But whatever is decided could significantly change the balance of power between the branches of government going forward. And of course, on the other side of the argument is that Donald Trump has in fact been issuing a massive amount of executive orders. Those used to be a lot more controversial. Remember, they effectively are used as a tool to bypass Congress. The president dictates, right, effectively rules by decree, makes an order, bypasses the legislative process. Technically, it's not as solid because the next president coming in can just sign an order and get rid of all of them, which Biden did to Trump in the first term. And of course, Trump did to Biden day one when he came into office. It's very easy to get rid of executive orders with a new administration. But while it is a power the president has, it used to be something that was used, a bit more sparingly. That really changed under past presidents. Barack Obama created a lot of controversy because in his second term especially, he was using a ton of executive orders. And it was Republicans at that time who were challenging that. Republicans are the ones saying this is, again, against the issues of the United States. It was Republicans saying, of course, this is undermining the legislative process, and Republicans saying that he's ruling like a king. Now it's on the shoe is on the other foot now. In his entire 8 years in office, Barack Obama signed around 276 executive orders. That was a lot. Donald Trump has far surpassed that. Between his first term and now, Donald Trump has signed around 367 executive orders. Now look, that includes around 147 in just the first few months of his second term, meaning in his second term, first 100 days, he's on track to surpass Obama's entire 8 years. There's an important caveat to this, though. It should be noted that many of Trump's orders have to do with the fact that he had a break between terms. Again, he had his first term, Biden came in, and now he has his second term. And when Biden came in, Biden got rid of almost all of Trump's executive orders. He signed an order, got rid of all of them effectively, and also put a lot of new policies in place. Many of Trump's current executive orders, what he's doing more so, are putting back in place his previous policies, reinstating them, and also getting rid of Biden's policies and orders, especially when it comes to things like the border and DEI policies and ESG environmental policies and so on. Meaning he's trying to reset his administration as if the last 4 years did not happen effectively. And that's where things are at now. Now, look, on that point, though, there are additional options on the table that could also really affect the way the court weighs this issue. It is possible, if the Supreme Court rules in favor of the judges, again, they're going to be hearing the first stages of it this Thursday, and if that means Donald Trump's ability to carry out his policies can effectively remain on hold, it is possible the Trump administration could look to other options, additional powers, which they do have, by the way. There is discussion affirmatively on the surface now. They're actually saying it. The Trump administration is, in fact, looking now to invoke some of these additional powers, among them suspension of habeas corpus, basically due process, right? Republicans usually call it habeas corpus. A lot of Democrats just say due process. What does this mean? It is the law that allows you to have normal judicial rights, right? Due process. The president does, in fact, have the power to put that on hold. It's been done about 4 times through U.S. history. 3 of the 4 actually had to go through Congress. 1 of them did not. But historical precedence does say the president can do it without needing to go through Congress in some cases. It would still be very controversial, but the power does exist. And this could be, for example, a way to carry out mass deportations in a way that bypasses the court system. The entire argument of due process goes away, and the powers of that do exist. In fact, the president even has the powers to suspend federal courts, federal judges. These powers do exist, and it is possible that depending on how the Supreme Court rules, Trump could hit that big red button and make this happen. They're talking about it now. In recent comments to the press, White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy Stephen Miller said that this is at least being, quote, looked at. Watch.
Well, the Constitution is clear, and that, of course, is the supreme law of the land, that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at. Look, a lot of it...
Now, aside from the more extreme options on the table, because the options do exist, the Trump administration is also putting in place other options and tools to help facilitate deportations. For Donald Trump right now, deportations and tariffs, these are the 2 frontline issues. There's a lot of cultural issues, getting rid of race politics, gender politics, and environmental politics. Effectively right now, these are the defining issues of his administration. But one of the biggest ones is the deportations, and this is also one of the biggest ones where the battles with the courts are taking place. Among the bigger programs now being rolled out is one that will give illegal immigrants free flights and free money if they choose to self-deport. The administration recently announced the program. We discussed it previously. Donald Trump has now issued a presidential statement on rolling out a new program, and he has now signed an executive order on this. There are new updates on it Watch this.
Today, I signed an executive order to launch the first ever self-deportation program for illegal aliens. We are making it as easy as possible for illegal aliens to leave America. Any illegal alien can simply show up at an airport and receive a free flight out of our country. We have also launched a phone app called CBP Home. That's CBP Home, where illegals can book a free flight to any foreign country. As long as it's not here, you can go anywhere you want. We're also adding a very important exit bonus for illegals to further incentivize their self-deportation. This deportation bonus will save American taxpayers billions and billions of dollars. What Biden did to this country can never be explained, will never, ever be accepted. Eventually, when the illegals are gone, it will save us trillions of dollars. However, if illegal aliens choose to remain in America, they're remaining illegally and they will face severe consequences. Illegal aliens who stay in America face punishments including significant jail time, enormous financial penalties, confiscation of all property, garnishment of all wages, imprisonment and incarceration, and sudden deportation in a place and manner solely of our discretion. So to all illegal aliens, book your free flight right now. We want you out of America, but if you're really good, we're going to try and help you get back in. Thank you.
The implications of this policy cannot be understated. This effectively means, as of now, all illegal immigrants in the country are now here illegally. They are now officially criminals. Any who do not take actions to self-deport will be facing additional criminal charges. That includes fines, that possibly includes imprisonment. It could even include the seizing of their assets. This is a massive, massive escalation of any previous policies existing for illegal immigrants in the country. This means that anybody now who does not begin efforts to self-deport is now a criminal. They are, again, going to get additional criminal charges. The push for self-deportations also has to do with a couple other points, though. Like on one side, realistically, it will probably not be possible for the administration to carry out the amount of deportations they would need to get rid of every single illegal alien in the country. Some might hedge their bets and say, you know what? I think my chances are pretty good. I'm going to keep my head low and stay here. It costs the United States over $17,000 for every person who gets deported. And between costs, logistics, the time of each one, the holding facilities, the legal challenges, it is not likely that that's going to work for 20 million people or even more. They're saying 20 million illegal immigrants in the United States at a low-end estimate. They're saying it's actually probably higher than that. On the other side, though, the Trump administration is also now enacting daily fines on illegal immigrants who are here and not taking the steps to self-deport. That's up to $1 million in fines if done retroactively, and this does apply retroactively. What does that mean? It means basically they will recoup the costs of deportation, the $17,000 to deport every single one of them. They're going to make people effectively pay for their own deportations and then some. The Trump administration is also talking about forfeitures as well, and it is possible they're looking to recoup the cost between fines and forfeitures. That means if an illegal immigrant has bought a house, they could lose their house. If they've bought a car, they could lose their car. And again, that more than covers up for the $17,000 it costs to deport them. Meaning the Trump administration has found a way to finance these operations. In addition to this also, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, they're putting systems in place for facial recognition at the U.S.-Mexico border. This is allegedly to help identify people under the programs for self-deportation. Wired said this: United States Customs and Border Protection, CBP, plans to log every person leaving the country by vehicle by taking photos at border crossings of every passenger and matching their faces to their passports, visas, or travel documents, Wired has learned. Meaning they're going to be checking every single person very carefully now. It says the escalated documentation of travelers could be used to track how many people are self-deporting or leave the U.S. voluntarily, which the Trump administration is fervently encouraging to people in the country illegally. Now, that's Wired's take on it, that again, this is a system to basically track people for self-deportations. I would say it's a bit more than that. Personally, though, I thought they already had systems like that in place at border crossings. Even airports have facial recognition systems very similar to that, especially when they're dealing with border security issues like gangs, cartels, terrorists. Remember, the gangs and cartels are also now designated as terrorists. And then there's the additional national security concerns on top of it all. It is very likely these checks are also looking for drug traffickers, human traffickers, gang members, and so on. And if they find, hey, this individual in your vehicle is, not, maybe they've been deported before, they could arrest them. If they're finding this individual has a warrant out for the arrest, they could arrest them. If they're finding this individual is a known gang member or known cartel member, they could arrest them. And so this makes it a lot more dangerous for anybody crossing the border who has a criminal record. Now, Stephen Miller also explained how due process may have been violated, and I cannot emphasize how big of a deal this is. Stephen Miller explained due process was violated, they claim, in the block on Trump ending temporary protection status of illegal immigrants. This is during comments to the press on Friday. Watch this.
Well, the Constitution is clear, and that, of course, is the supreme law of the land, that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at. Look, a lot of it depends on whether the courts do the right thing or not. At the end of the day, Congress passed a body of law known as the Immigration and Nationality Act, which stripped Article III courts, that's the judicial branch, of jurisdiction over immigration cases. So Congress actually passed, it's called jurisdiction stripping legislation. It passed a number of laws that say that the Article III courts aren't even allowed to be involved in immigration cases. Many of you probably don't know this. I'll give you a good example. Are you familiar with the term temporary protected status, or TPS, right? So by statute, the courts are stripped of jurisdiction from overruling a presidential determination or a secretarial determination on TPS when the Secretary of Homeland Security makes that determination. So when Secretary Noem terminated TPS for the illegals that Biden flew into the country, when courts stepped in, they were violating explicit language that Congress had enacted, saying they have no jurisdiction. So it's not just the courts aren't just at war with the executive branch, the courts are at war, these radical rogue judges, with the legislative branch as well, too. So all of that will inform the choices the president ultimately makes, yes.
On that point, this could be one of the major arguments this week when the Supreme Court starts hearing these cases. If the courts really have no jurisdiction over immigration cases, that's huge. That could be the end of all these challenges, at least on that front, but we will see. This does deal with the issue of jurisdiction. If it is not only the issue that a district court cannot make a national injunction against the president, that alone is a very big thing, that would overturn most of the holds on Trump's policies. We'll see if the Supreme Court actually rules on that. But the other side is if these district courts do not have jurisdiction over deportations and issues like that, that also means that the gates are thrown open for deportations. And on a related point also, the Trump administration is looking to bolster its resources, gearing up for mass deportations, additional powers, additional resources, huge, with a new executive order that establishes what's known as Project Homecoming, they call it. I'll be talking more about this after we come back from a quick break.
Experts agree. One of the best ways to protect against financial uncertainty is to diversify your portfolio. Learn how physical gold and silver can secure your retirement funds from today's economic challenges. With a gold IRA from American Hartford Gold, you can safeguard your wealth with no penalties or taxes when you transfer your current qualifying retirement accounts. Call now and our precious metals specialists will send you a free information kit, no cost or obligation. American Hartford Gold, a trusted industry leader with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau, has a 5-star rating from thousands of happy clients. Whether you are getting physical precious metals in a gold IRA or delivered to your doorstep, we offer only the highest quality gold and silver. For your peace of mind, we also offer a no-fee buyback commitment. a low price guarantee, along with free shipping and free insurance. So don't wait. Call the number on your screen today and secure your financial future.
Welcome back. The Trump administration is looking to bolster its resources for deportations with a new executive order. This establishes what is now known as Project Homecoming. This is now official. It is underway. This order, what it does, it has now established the free return home and CBP-1 application, the exit bonus for each illegal alien who voluntarily and permanently departs the United States, although Trump says he wants a very open door for them to return if they do it legally. It also establishes penalties for illegal immigrants who fail to deport, again, something that may fund the cost of deportation itself and a lot more in addition to that, as well as bolster resources for the deportations. This is the official White House announcement. It says this: no later than 60 days after the date of this proclamation, the Secretary of Homeland Security shall supplement existing enforcement and removal operations by deputizing and contracting with state and local law enforcement officers, former federal officers, officers and personnel within other federal agencies, and other individuals to leaving that door open, other individuals, right? To increase the enforcement and removal operations force of the Department of Homeland Security by no less than 20,000 officers, meaning at the very least, it could be upwards of that to infinite numbers. There's no limit, but 20,000 is the minimum. 20,000 officers in order to conduct an intensive campaign to remove illegal aliens who have failed to depart voluntarily. Really what they're doing now, Department of Homeland Security now has the ability to begin deputizing additional officers. This could be deputizing local law enforcement. It could be deputizing people who are retired, again, former agents. It could be deputizing other people, meaning I don't know what the requirement is, but basically anybody. They're going to be deputizing people as part of DHS to carry out a massive deportation effort. They're going to be doing this in 60 days. 60 days, remember, the deportation orders are now in place. If people do not deport now, self-deport, that means, again, if there are daily fines, this will cover the cost of deportation. It means every single illegal immigrant, no matter their status, no matter if they've been here for 50 years, no matter what, there are cases of those people being deported now as well, no matter what, they will lose their home, they will lose their car, they will lose their assets, they will be deported, and they can never come back. 20 years at least, maybe even longer. Now, according to reports, the number of ICE agents that are currently working on deportation efforts, it's only around 6,000 people. This will bring it up to a minimum of 26,000. So this move to increase officers to 20,000, again, the minimum level, that is going to bolster the baseline of this considerably. And what does that mean? It means that they may actually reach the 20 million goal if people don't self-deport. And meanwhile, also, there are growing questions of how broad this could be. And there are some cases recently suggesting how broad this is going to be. There is a recent arrest, a case of a Mexican family in Georgia. This one even suggests that quote-unquote dreamers, people who came here under DACA, this is, the kids who were brought here, they didn't have a choice. Their parents brought them. They were given a temporary protection status under the Obama administration. Again, they called this DACA, deferred deportation. They call them dreamers. Even they could be facing deportation. New York Post said this. It said a Georgia college student faces deportation after she ran a red light, and authorities discovered her entire family has been living illegally in the U.S. for nearly 15 years. It says Mexican national Ximena Arias Cristobal, 19 years old, was pulled over by police in Dalton, Georgia on May 5th when she failed to adhere to a no turn on red sign, a very minor traffic injunction, normally not a big deal. Normally they give you a fine for it. She's facing a bit more. It says this: Yamena Arias Cristobal, a Dalton State Community College student, was driving without a driver's license. That's a much bigger issue, but told officers she had an international driver's license, according to WTVC, citing the arrest report. Further, it states in 2010, Arias Cristobal was brought into the U.S. illegally by her parents when she was only 4 years old during the family's move from Mexico City to the Dalton area. Their move, again, being an illegal entry to the United States. 2010, that was Obama administration. Now it says this is over 30 miles from the Tennessee and Georgia border. And I will add, look, it's not clear whether she was enrolled in the DACA program, but the timing and her age, 4 years old when she came across during the Obama administration when the DACA Dreamer policies are put in place. This woman, 19 years old, came to the U.S. when she was 4 years old, 2010. That would again be under the Obama administration. And this is why that's important. Among the policies at that time was, again, DACA, these so-called Dreamers. This arrest does raise question over whether that group could also be deported and how far back that's going to go. Not only that, but if one of these Dreamers is arrested, that their entire family is located by proxy of them and deported right alongside them as well. Now, Donald Trump previously said that he was looking into, alternate solutions to potentially allow DACA recipients to stay in the United States. It's not clear whether that's still the policy. This is still very much up in the air, and this arrest could be a signal of that. This means anybody now, DACA, Dreamer, whatever, anybody now, if you're under temporary protection status, no matter what, if you are here illegally, no matter the status, they're now saying you have to download the CBP Home app, register with it, and again, from there, they'll decide whether you should be deported or not. But it is very dangerous to not do it at this point. Again, not only could you be deported, but they will fine you, they will give you a criminal record, and you may never be able to come back. On the other side of it, they're saying if you do self-deport, they're going to have a very open system for people to return. And that is going to be an issue, especially if they want to have like factories coming back to the U.S. And the reality is there are just a lot of jobs that are not going to be done if you don't have, migrant workers. Trump has said they're going to have a very open policy on that front. But again, it's very dangerous for people who are in the gray area or illegal alien status. Now, on a related point of this, though, Democrat officials have been working to challenge the Trump administration's programs for deportations. And in a recent incident, the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, was arrested for allegedly trespassing in a federal deportation center. And in addition to the mayor of Newark, New Jersey being arrested, it's possible that additional elected officials could be arrested, maybe even facing some pretty severe charges. It's now being alleged the entourage assaulted ICE officers. They even claim that one of them body slammed a female ICE officer. CNBC said this. It said the Trump administration suggested Saturday that New Jersey Democratic lawmakers involved in a clash a day earlier with authorities at a federal immigration detention center that led to the arrest of Newark Mayor Ross Baraka could also face criminal charges. And they said, quote, there will likely be more arrests coming. Department of Homeland Security spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin told CNN in an interview on Saturday. I'll show you more on that. It says the three lawmakers at the scene, Representatives Bonnie Watson Coleman, Rob Menendez, and La Mosia Minerva, sharply dispute DHS's characterization of the incident. Now, in terms of what was said on CNN, the DHS official spoke very briefly about the ICE agent allegedly getting body slammed. They do say body slammed. And also said they'll be releasing the footage. Watch this.
We should let viewers know there will likely be more arrests coming. We actually have body camera footage of some of these members of Congress assaulting our ICE enforcement officers, including body slamming a female ICE officer. So we will be showing that to viewers very shortly.
You say a video of members of Congress body slamming ICE
That's correct.
officials?
That's correct, sir. It's disgusting.
Okay, and so if you have that video, are you suggesting that members of Congress will be arrested who were there yesterday?
This is an ongoing investigation, and that is definitely on the table.
Who has the video?
ICE does, and we will be releasing that very shortly.
Okay.
Now, in response to this, a Democrat official says that if body slamming video is released, they're saying it's been manufactured. Breitbart said this: Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman, a Democrat of New Jersey, claimed on Saturday on CNN's Newsroom that Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE officials would use manufactured footage to make it appear as though law enforcement agents were body slammed during the arrest of Newark Mayor Ross Baraka at the Delaney Hall Detention Center last week. Watson Coleman said, quote, "We were there for a tour. ICE was giving us the runaround. We finally got into the facility. We heard some noise. We came out. We found that the mayor was there, and they were, and ICE was having conversations with him. They asked him to leave the facility. He left the facility." It adds as well, Watson Coleman said, quote, "If there's any such body kind of footage, it is footage that is manufactured for this purpose, because I said it before and I'll say it again, they are lying." So is this true? Is one side lying? Is the other side lying? We may get answers on that when they release the footage. So far, they have released some footage. Now, some of us, when we think body slamming, we think World Wrestling Federation, WWF, where one person gets knocked to the ground, the other guy climbs up on like the ring and jumps off and body slams them. We would presumably think if there's actually body slamming video, then an ICE agent gets slammed to the ground and one of the elected officials climbs the fence and does the whole Hulk Hogan body slam. So far, there is no such footage. So far, we don't see that. The video that has been shown does show one of the elected officials using her body to slam into an ICE official. Is that body slamming? Not by wrestling rules, I don't think. There's also video suggesting that one of the officials punches one of the ICE officers, I believe in the arm or the shoulder. Not anything that's going to cause any major bodily harm. But the important part with this is that, you know, while it's not maybe not as severe as it may sound, most people, if they did that, they would go to jail for a very long time. The question is, will elected officials be held to the same standards of law as the average American? The average American would absolutely be arrested for that and probably go to jail for quite a while. We will see how far they enforce this. We'll also see how the courts deal with it, because if you have a local court in the jurisdiction of the elected officials and they're kind of within the same political body, they're probably not going to get hit very hard with it. We will see what happens. But again, we're still waiting for the body slamming footage unless they're saying that that was body slamming. That said, folks, let's jump into some questions. If you have any questions, comments, leave them in the chat. We'll get to them now. And also, please don't forget to hit the like button. It helps us a lot with the algorithms. All right, first off, Denise B. is saying, if SCOTUS, Supreme Court, rules that babies born to illegal aliens in the U.S. are citizens of this nation, wouldn't that mean that a baby born to any foreign tourist would get U.S. citizenship? I can see a whole new business opportunity here. Tourism birth centers. They already have that. That industry already exists. And the policy right now is that if you are born on American soil, no matter the circumstance, you are an American citizen. This means if you're here on a student visa and you get pregnant in school and you give birth here, your kid is an American citizen. This means that if you live in Mexico and you're pregnant and you're giving birth and you want to give birth in America to have your kid become a citizen, so you just walk across the Rio Grande, go into a birth center, or take an Uber and give birth in an American hospital. Your kid's an American citizen, and then you can use them as what they call anchor baby status, where you get additional status and even social welfare off that child, and you can bring additional family members here. That already exists. They already have birth tourism centers set up. Those are kind of illegal. People have been arrested for doing that. For example, there are Chinese facilities that do this, where they set up, motels and they have entire services. Women come here, they can stay here like the last, month or two of their pregnancy. It's a very cushy thing, and give birth here. Then their kid's a citizen. Then they can come here. They can bring their family here, and so on. That part of it is illegal, but everything else with birth tourism, they call it anchor baby status, of course. That's all totally in place right now. The case that's used to define birthright citizenship had to do with an individual who is Chinese. This, I believe, goes back to the late 1800s or early 1900s. Can't remember the exact date. The constitutional argument on birthright citizenship has to do with that case. The issue that is going to be debated by the Trump administration is this, though. The historical precedent that is enshrined in the Constitution, which people are saying this is Constitution, Trump can't challenge it. The technicality is that the Supreme Court precedents had to do with an individual who was a U.S. legal resident. A legal resident, not a legal immigrant. And that's going to be the legal argument they're going to use for it. I think when Trump first brought out his challenges to birthright citizenship, many people said it's never going to work. This is enshrined in the Constitution. Until a lot of us went back and actually read the constitutional arguments on it and the previous Supreme Court ruling. What is being left out of the entire argument is, again, this is the difference between U.S. legal residency and illegal immigration. And I don't know if this will overturn people who got birthright citizenship if their parents were illegal immigrants. There are some people who want to see that happen. It is possible. I don't know. I don't know if they could actually strip citizenship from people, but it is totally possible that on an extreme interpretation that could happen. Given the nature of the Supreme Court, I don't think they'd go so far as to do that. I'm not ruling out entirely, but I would say it's very unlikely. But based on the legal arguments, there is a very good chance they could overturn birthright citizenship for any non-legal resident. That means if you're here on a student visa, you're on a green card, that might be a gray area one, or here because you're here illegally, that they may end birthright citizenship for those people. And the argument for the Trump side is there are just too many people abusing it. It may be a nice thing to do if it's a small number of people. If you have people abusing it by the hundreds of thousands or the millions, it works as a type of cultural genocide. It basically works as population replacement by a foreign country. And that will be part of the argument on that, that we will not have a country if this continues. Or at the very least, the cultural makeup of the country will change. It's already pretty heavily like that, actually. Which again, I mean, I'm an example of that. Like a lot of my family is Mexican. You know what I mean? I'm not, but a lot of my cousins are and stuff. Actually, and again, I have no issue with it personally. I'm just talking about this. I'm talking about this purely from a legal standpoint, right? Ashley from California, you're saying DHS is now going to investigate California for giving federal benefits to illegals. Yeah, and that's another issue as well. Okay, so in California, in New York, in a lot of these sanctuary cities, they treat residents the same regardless of legal status. The way they've done a lot of that is they've made it so that federal authorities cannot even check a person's legal status. So they make it so that if a person applies for social welfare, if a person applies for benefits, if they apply for, maybe they have a kid or something like that, and they need food stamps, the person hearing that case, weighing whether they should get them or not, they're not allowed to ask the legal status of the individual. And because of that, you get a lot of illegal aliens who get federal benefits, who get money, who get these different programs because the local laws restrict them from checking a person's status. Now that creates a lot of additional problems as well, including, for example, when they open it up to getting ID programs, when they open it up to getting driver's licenses, and when they also connect your driver's license to voter registration. And the question of whether or not you get voting rights is whether or not you decide to, click the yes or no when it asks if you're here legally or not. And if a person chooses to just hit the other button or they click it wrong, they're then able to vote. And, the onus is on them. They, of course, can be charged federally, but there are also additional protections in place to prevent even those types of investigations. When it comes to that, the databases of the DMV and the databases of ICE and other things, there are attempts of the DOJ department, right, Elon Musk and so on, looking at those records, but there are judges trying to block even federal investigations, looking into records that can compare and see if illegal immigrants are registered to vote. Meaning, there are huge systems in place to protect what may be large-scale violations of the law. And the argument for that is, well, privacy laws, departments cannot transfer private information of Americans between departments, and so there are laws preventing that. The argument from the Trump side is there is enough suspicion of major violations of American law that justify those actions and maybe even make it necessary, especially if it comes down to, the elections of the United States and our ability to elect new leaders, which is kind of like the foundation of having, a constitutional republic where people choose their leaders. You don't have a constitutional republic without a voting system. And if your voting system is being undermined because of gray area laws, your system of government has been altered. It means you no longer are the country you thought you were. And so that is one of the challenges, right? Real quick, I know there's a lot going on right now also. There's too much going on to go into in a single episode. Unless I give you like headlines, I don't want to do a show like that. I don't think it has a lot of value. Briefly, there is a new trade deal between the U.S. and China. Basically, all that's happening right now is they're putting the tariffs on hold for 90 days. I will go more into this in a future episode. The basic thing you need to know is they paused the tariffs for 90 days. Also, the war between Pakistan and India looks like it's over. I know there have been smaller incursions, drone strikes, and so on. For the most part, it's over. You probably are going to have terrorist groups launching small-scale incursions, nothing major. Trump was accused of having failed to do those negotiations. It basically worked. You had a slow drizzling down of them. There's enough peace now. It's not going to be a full-scale war. Trump also got a jet, the new Air Force One from Qatar, Qatar, whatever you want to say. A lot of Democrats are saying, actually, a lot of Republicans are also critical of Trump on this as well this time. The technicality with the Air Force One jet from Qatar is this. The White House, the Trump administration, has been trying to get a new Air Force One from Boeing, going back to Trump's first term in office. And they keep delaying it. Boeing, in addition to repeated delays, has continued increasing the price tag, now over $1 billion of the initial contract. That's a lot of money. And they're saying, look, you can't keep delaying, you can't keep tacking on new money. Deal is off, we're going to buy it from another country. They're going to Qatar, and again, one of these very wealthy countries that gets rich off oil. They live like royalty, like modern royalty. This thing's a very fancy jet. A couple months ago, so this is not new, a couple months ago, Donald Trump had actually contacted Qatar or Qatar to buy this jet in place of the Boeing contract. This would be a temporary purchase unless they can renegotiate with Boeing. Qatar has now waived the fees on that, and they're going to give it to the Trump administration. Now, some people say the president cannot accept a private gift like this. The way they've gotten around that is that it's given to the United States. This will go through the Defense Department and eventually be gifted to the Trump Presidential Library. Justice Department has determined this is legal. This is not illegal, but a lot of media are saying it's illegal. They've already done legal analysis. They say it's not illegal, but you could argue that it's a bit of a gray area thing. Even a lot of Republicans are very angry about this. This is why that is. Trump also, at the same time this happened, Trump also has, let's say, distanced from the U.S. relationship with Israel. We don't know the details on it. Sorry, we're in New York, folks. You get announcements like this. Give me one sec.
Good morning. May I have your attention, please?
We're in New York.
May I have your attention, please?
So they do these announcements.
We are now conducting our emergency action plan drill for the 8th floor.
Wonderful.
At this time,
They test the fire systems. It's a New York policy.
Lobby area on your floor.
Give me a sec, folks. I apologize for this.
Once again, we are conducting our emergency.
Yeah. Judy, you're asking fire alarm tests. So they do fire drills in New York. They do it a few times a year, and I think it's a good thing. They're making it so that if there's an emergency, you know how to escape the building. Especially post 9/11, they want to make sure that if there's an emergency, you know what to do, right? People don't panic and so on. So they do these tests. So apologize for the delay. Back to what's happening. I'll explain this briefly so we can get back to questions, though. James Dyson, I'm living on the edge, buddy. They can't make me. I'm there in spirit, right? I'll go over this briefly because I want to get back to questions. But on the issue of Qatar and so on, the real reason this is really controversial is not so much because Trump, in my opinion, my personal interpretation, the reason this is becoming more controversial than it normally would be is because it has to do with Middle East policies and relations. A lot of people interpret this as Donald Trump getting closer to Middle East powers, Qatar and Saudi Arabia, while distancing from Israel. That's why this is regarded as controversial. And that's kind of like the elephant in the room, and nobody's really saying that part out loud. That's why a lot of people are mad about it. We don't know the details on this. Trump has said that Benjamin Netanyahu, again of Israel, kind of giving him the runaround. Part of the technicality with that is that Israel now says they want to occupy Gaza. They're going to be taking it over, occupying it. And also because Trump made a ceasefire deal with the Houthis, the terrorist group that was launching attacks on shipping containers and ships in the Red Sea. Israel was very unhappy that Trump made the ceasefire with the Houthis, that he made a deal with them. They're a terrorist organization. And so there's a bit of division now between the U.S. and Israel. The Trump administration has clarified U.S. policy towards Israel has not changed. We're still in very friendly terms with them. But it seems that between Trump and Netanyahu, there's a little bit of a falling out. Now, the issue with Qatar suddenly waiving the charges and just giving this Air Force One jet to Trump happened around the same time as that announcement. And so some people took that in context of the Israeli deal, and they believe it's meant as kind of like a, hey, come closer to us, buddy. You know, we're your friends, not them. And that's why it's so controversial, right? It's a whole issue of the political and religious dynamics in that region that is making this more controversial than it normally would be, and that's the real context of it. Maybe we'll go further into it if there's some updates, but that's basically what's happening. I just want to give you all an update because I know there's been a lot of news over the weekend. Back to questions though. Ashley from California, you're saying DHS is now going to invest. Oh, sorry, I read that already. Martin McKenzie, you're saying this is the tragedy of not enforcing immigration law. You get people making a life here illegally, then shocked when they are discovered and have to be deported. Yeah, and I mean, I can understand, right? I mean, look, so you're talking about the story of this 19-year-old girl from Georgia She was in community college. She's been here for 19 years, well, not 19 years. She was here as 19, so she's been here since she's been here for what, 15 years, right? And then suddenly you're deported. You know, I mean, this is a girl who basically has spent her entire life in the United States, went to school in the United States, is in every regards American culture, everything else, and then suddenly has to be sent to, you know, the home of her home, which she never really knew, but the home of her parents, where they have nothing established, they probably don't have much to go back to, and that's it, right? Now, there's two ways to look at this. On one side, I mean, look, if you've been living somewhere for 15 years and your entire life is built here, you probably have a house and your school and your friends and your friends and your family, you know, it's been your entire life. Being pulled out from that and being sent somewhere where you probably don't have anything. I assume they have family unless all the extended family came here as well. That's rough. That is very tough, and I mean, I can totally feel bad for a person like that. The other side is, this is such a widespread issue that if the law is not enforced, you're effectively legalizing something that's illegal. And unless they want to change the law and make it so that illegal immigration to the U.S. no longer exists, and we have no borders, that America is an open border country and anybody can come here, unless we do that, then this has to be done. And that's the difficult truth of it, right? If they do allow people who have entered the country illegally to stay here, if they've been here long enough, the message that sends is that it's okay. And that basically means, hey, everybody in the world, everybody on the face of the planet, we don't have borders anymore. We don't have laws anymore. You're allowed to, you know, we don't have, again, immigration laws anymore. Come here, build a life, and you're here forever. America no longer has borders, and that's what we are. The question then is, well, what are we as a country? And how does that apply to like voting rights? What does that mean for us? That's the other option, right? If you're going to have a country, if you're going to have borders, and you really can't have a country without borders, you have to have things like this. And I would acknowledge it's sad. Looking at the pictures of this girl, you know, they have pictures of her. They have pictures of her on the the news page. New York Post had the story. You know, she's a beautiful, beautiful young girl. She looks like she's a good girl. You know, I mean, I don't know. I'm judging by appearances here. Her dad looks like he's a good father. I'm sure these are not bad people. You know, I'm sure that if they had an open legal system, these are the kinds of people you'd probably want in the country. Family values, the kids going to college. These are the kinds of people you'd probably want. But, you know, violating a law for a long time does not make it legal. And that's the other argument. Just because you've been here for 15 years doesn't mean that it's okay. It just means you've been violating the law for a really long time. You know what I mean? And you could say that part of that blame should fall on, you know, previous administrations, that they should have been enforcing the law sooner. They should have been enforcing the law sooner, right? And you know, and you could say also that the message they were sending was that, you know, maybe it was okay. Absolutely, during the previous administration, under the Biden administration, and under Obama when she came in 2010. Absolutely. The message being sent by the U.S. government at the time was that this was permissive. And so were they sent the wrong message? Kind of, right? Is it totally their fault? Well, they did choose to take on the risk. You could say that. But you could also say that they were given mixed messages. One, you know, One administration said one thing, another administration said something else. It's a tragedy. I think it's very sad, but sometimes enforcement of law, it's sad sometimes, just how it is. I mean, look, and again, I'm not taking a hard stance on this. In my opinion, I can separate interpretation of law versus personal feeling. My personal feeling is, I told you my interpretation of law already, right? My personal feeling is, look, I have family members through marriage who are illegal immigrants. I know people like this. I know they're good people. You know, they speak perfect English. They don't even have an accent because they came here when they were young enough. I know people like this. I grew up going to birthday parties every single weekend because of my very large family. And, you know, like, again, like half my family's Mexican, right? Through marriage, again. And, you know, growing up having barbecues at the beach and stuff, I know a lot of people like this. I know a lot of people like this. They are not bad people. They're, at least the ones I know, strongly religious, good families, really good food, really good food, and very kind-hearted people. But I can separate that from the interpretation of the law. On the legal side, it is a question of whether we're a country, right? And it's a very tough differentiation. So I can see both sides of this, right? James Dyson, who's going to cut your lawn? I cut my own lawn. Luckily I don't have a lawn. I live in an apartment. My dad, when he was in Florida, actually used to have a landscaping business too. Actually, we were the landscapers. Again, I come from that side as well, right? Let's see here. Another question. RealityIsReal.com. You're saying we need a proper balance between the separation of political powers and the power of separating emotional influence from and case in point, right? The emotional influence and the intellectual clarity of seeing things as they actually are and what is essential to making things better. You know, that's the challenge, I think. You know, I think Americans are very kind-hearted people. And, you know, you could say that, let's put it this way. Americans get a bad reputation through false arguments. America is one of the most open, kind-hearted, least racist countries on earth. The whole argument around racism, go to China. Go to China and see what they think about black people, or basically any other race, including other Asians. And you'll find that, you know, xenophobia is in the blood. They're very racist. Go to Japan and see what they say. Go to Africa and go to Africa, even as a black American, and tell them you're an African American and see what they say. They will insult you. They will be offended. They'll say, you are not African, you are an American. They will reject you. Go to Latin America. Well, you know, Latin America is a bit more open racially because, you know, they are mixed race. If you want to go by blood, right? What is Latin America? It's European. It's, you know, black African. Most of the slave trade, the black slave trade, went to Latin America. Over 90% of it. Most did not go to the United States. Most went to Latin America. Overwhelming majority. And of course, you know, a lot of the native populations. They're the same racial makeup mostly as the United States. Europe is significantly more racist than the United States, even though they pretend not to be. My wife, again, from France, her family got amnesty. They're very kind of France to give her family amnesty because they would have been killed by the Khmer Rouge. My wife's mom's family is the only survivor in her entire family of the Khmer Rouge, which were the communists in Cambodia. They killed her entire family. Of her entire family, she's the only person who lived. That's it. At least of the ones who were in Cambodia. her father was actually in one of the death camps in the killing fields. He escaped from it, made his way to Thailand, and then was arrested in Thailand. They were going to send him back. Sent a letter to the French embassy, and the French embassy gave him amnesty in France. Great, thank you, France. Her family's alive because of France. But you know, culturally, they're really racist. And again, you know, this is the other side of it, right? You can have people who are very open, very kind, but still dislike you on a cultural level. And her family left from France to the U.S. mostly because of the racism, actually. And so America, I would say, is probably the most accepting, least racist country, I would say, on the face of the planet. And we're told we're otherwise. It's a bunch of nonsense. And so we are very open. We've let a lot of people into this country. I'd say even when it comes to the issue of migration, I would say a lot of Americans. Look, you can have Americans who totally believe in deporting every illegal immigrant, and they'll still hire illegal immigrants at their businesses. They'll still have friends who are illegal immigrants, because I think they can separate like your belief in law from your emotions. It's a funny thing. Even on that point, a lot of Latinos are conservative, especially young men, which makes me wonder, like, are you guys trying to get rid of your in-laws? Is that what's going on here? Are you trying to get rid of your mother-in-laws? Is that what's really happening? Is that why you voted for Trump? I'm half joking on this because I know some personal cases like that, right? But anyways, I would actually say a lot of Americans are very open, very kind-hearted people. And the other side of it is that we have allowed a lot of laws to be violated for a very long time. The hard truth is, though, is that the extent to which America has been taken advantage of is too large. And it's reached a state where it's not sustainable anymore. And I think that's the argument for the Trump administration, is that we need to kind of reset things. The resetting process is going to be painful. They will allow people who are deported, if they do it on their own volition, self-deport, they're going to have a very kind-hearted, very open policy of letting people back in. But I do think in the interim, you're going to have a lot of very sad stories. You're going to have a lot of stories of people who have been here, 10, 20, maybe even longer than that years. You're going to have a lot of stories of people who have families here and children here, and maybe even the children are American citizens and they're getting deported because they want to go with their family and that's their choice. You're going to be seeing a lot of stories like that. On one side, you could say, well, shouldn't they just let them all stay? Well, it would be the kind thing to do, but is it the good thing to do? That's the other side of it. Because the argument from the conservative side, the Trump side, I think, is that if you do that, we're not going to have you can't have a country without defined borders. And if we get rid of our borders, it means that America is just a free-for-all for the entire world, and we kind of have to choose which we want, right? And I think on Trump's side, they're saying, well, the American people have chosen. The election was the great deciding factor, the great choosing, and Americans chose mass deportations. That was the will of the people, as Trump says it. And so, they're probably going to be doing it. And is it going to be pretty? Absolutely not. Is it what's right? It depends on how I don't know. It depends on your own. I can't say that. That's a personal moral issue. Some people believe so. Some people believe not. Is that the law, right? And I think that's where it's coming in. Is that if you want to reestablish law and order, and reestablish really a country of enforced laws, because we have not enforced existing laws for a long time, then yeah, that is what needs to be done to begin enforcing the laws. And I'll add one more point on the point of laws. Americans have a very odd relationship with law. We're a country that tends to have. You're kind of expected to violate the law a little bit in America. We're a weird country like that. You know, when you're driving on the road, you're kind of expected to speed a little bit. You can go like, what is it? Is it 10 over 5? You know, I do it so often I forget. You're allowed to speed. But of course, and to the extent where we even have like apps on our phones that alert us if a police officer is around, so we know to slow down, so we look like we're law-abiding citizens. But be honest with me. How many of you never go above the speed limit? Be honest. Come on. Be honest. How many of you never go over the speed limit? Why do you drive over the speed limit? It's because we have a culture that allows for very mild violation of the law. That can be taken a little too far. That can be taken a little too far, where we violate the law a little bit too much. And when you get to that stage, there does need to be a resetting. This does go into the two interpretations of law we have in the United States. They talk about word of the law and spirit of the law. And it is actually on the interpretation, oftentimes, of the police officer in which they want to enforce. Local police, right, at your state or local level, more like city level, like your police departments, they tend to be more word of the law. Your sheriffs, like your sheriff deputies, they tend to be more spirit of the law. They might let you off the hook if you're a nice person, and they think that, you know, they might let you off with a warning. But when taken into the broader context, if you've been lax on enforcing the law to the extent that it causes mass violations of it for a very long time and begins to undermine the very nature of what a nation is, whether you're even a country anymore, what do? Do you go back to enforcing word of the law, or do you keep it as spirit of the law? You know, and that's the crossroads America's at right now. And I do believe America has voted for word of the law, at least when it comes to immigration. And I think even with a lot of crime, things have gotten too bad. You have too many people violating the law to extreme extents, to such an extent that law and order is coming back. And I think that's what you're watching happen right now. Painful process, but some would argue necessary. Again, I would say it's more of a personal value thing, and I think everyone is entitled to their own opinion on that, right? All right, folks, that said, happy Monday. Thank you for being here. I hope you had a good Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day again to all the moms out there. We have, of course, a lot going on this week, so stay tuned. We'll be talking more tomorrow. A lot going on, including Trump talking about basically changing the medical system in America. Some big things happening. Pharmaceuticals, huge announcement. A lot of big stuff taking place right now. Join me tomorrow. We'll be talking about a lot of the very big things happening in this country. That said, in the meantime, please share this video. Help us get the word out. At the very least, leave a comment. Again, I am soliciting questions or topics. What do you want me to cover? If I were to begin investigating topics, what would you want to see investigated? Let me know in the comments, because I'm trying to get some ideas right now. On that front, folks, big update. I'm looking into beginning to do features and investigations again. I know I have not done this in a while. I want to begin doing a more impactful job. You know, I like doing this type of show a lot. I wonder sometimes if I should also do things that, you know, I'm an investigative reporter. I can do a lot of good on the ground investigations. I'm looking for stuff on this. That said, starting next week, we're going to go to 4 days a week. I know this is, I love doing the show every day, but I believe that I need to begin doing more in-depth features again. And I think that the impact of this will be a lot better. I want to get out and start doing things again. I feel like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love doing a daily show like this, but I don't like being a desktop journalist. It's not really my character. I want to get out again. I want to look into things again. I want to get you all some on-the-ground reporting and some really, really good stories. Starting next week, we will not have a show on Fridays. We will still have on Fridays the primetime show, so join the primetime show if you want Crossroads on Fridays. I'm going to begin spending my Fridays doing research for in-depth features, investigations, profiles, and more in-depth content. So you are going to get, you know, again, it's not like I'm going to be sipping margaritas at the beach. I'm going to be working very hard to get you better content, but I need the time for it. And so starting next week, we will go to 4 days a week. We will not have a show on Fridays. This week, 5 days, so all good. But starting next week again, we will be changing the schedule a bit. So just heads up on that. That said, folks, again, if you want to chat with each other, jump into the primetime show, and you can. The primetime show is still on Fridays. It's 8:00 p.m., so you can still watch that on Fridays. That said, folks, please like this video, share it, leave a comment, and thank you so much for your support. I will see you again tomorrow. And that said, as always, please take care of yourselves, stay informed, and stay free. Thank you.